What's up, everybody? It's Man with Low Moral Fiber here. My name's Luke, and in this video, we're going to be taking another look at the Wanderlust as a part of my Does It Suck series. The Wanderlust is a Pearlescent rarity Maliwan pistol, and like many other weapons, it did receive a significant buff as a part of the community patch, which is why we're going to be taking another look at it. We're going to start here by looking at the unpatched version of the weapon to really illustrate how poor this weapon is without the community patch. Then we'll apply the community patch to see how the weapon has improved. Without the community patch, the Wanderlust drops exclusively from tubby enemies, and the community patch makes it so that it can drop from, theoretically, any loot source, but it will most commonly drop from oh my god what the hell out in Digistruct Peak. So this particular variant of the Wanderlust is going to have the base damage accessory, giving it a potent prefix, and it's also going to have a Maliwan grip. We can see up here on the barrel it is an E-Tech weapon, and it's going to be most like a dart. And so when we compare this weapon to a dart with a similar build, we can see that the dart actually has a higher damage, it has a much higher accuracy, and the damage over time chance is a little bit different. But the main difference here is the accuracy. We can see that a regular potent dart shoots as you would kind of expect. You know, it's fairly accurate, and then it can bounce in and chase enemies around as well. The Wanderlust, on the other hand, is entirely inaccurate, and it apparently homes in on enemies. You can see that it doesn't try to follow where my cursor is or where my reticle is at all. It simply just immediately takes like a 90-degree turn in one direction, and then eventually starts moving forward. That's pretty much the worst thing about this weapon, and I'll try to illustrate that for you here. We're going to get started on this guy, and yeah, we'll just try to shoot him, and you can see that it takes a while for these bullets to go into him, so perhaps the thing to do would be to fight him from an area where he can't fight us, but let's see how long it takes to kill him. And this is the base damage accessory version. We could use a version that increases the projectile speed a little bit, but then we'd be missing out on some damage. You can see here that it does eventually wear him down and kill him. Part of that was probably cloud kill, though, if I had to guess. So with this weapon in particular, I think we're definitely going to benefit from having the binary version instead of the potent version. You can see that that does take our damage and fire rate down a little bit, but it does allow us to fire 2 rounds at a time, or 2 shots at a time. It's going to cost us 6 rounds of ammunition to do that. We get a slight increase in the magazine size, but it's not enough to really give us more shots per magazine because we're consuming more ammo. Anywho, let's go ahead and see how we do when we phase lock some enemies. I'm going to phase lock this one here, and then just try to start shooting at these guys. I do not know if this weapon can benefit from critical, or not critical ascension, but chain reaction, and it does not look like it can while I have deception activated there. So you can see that it is taking out some enemies. Obviously, part of that is cloud kill. Perhaps we need to spec out of cloud kill for testing. But you can see that when I phase lock this enemy here and I shoot at him, it's this enemy over here who is receiving some of the damage. So that's never what we want to be at. We would always want to like actually shoot the enemies that we have debuffed or disabled, or at least the enemies that we are aiming at. The fact that this weapon targets enemies that you're not aiming at is something that I find to be tremendously difficult about the weapon. And even if we stand real close to an enemy, it's not going to immediately attack them, and we can demonstrate that here in a minute. We'll let that exploder blow up, and then we'll pick up this hot loader here. I'm going to run towards him just a little bit and shoot at this range, and you can see that the bullets still have to bounce around before they can actually get to the hot loader. So, cloud kill's killing things. Cloud kill definitely doesn't suck anymore. Cloud kill's almost OP, but you can see the Wanderlust, it takes forever for these bullets to actually converge on an enemy, and even when you have multiple rounds converging at once, they don't seem like they're actually dealing that much damage. So again, we'll throw the Scorn out here. Hopefully, by the time Scorn slags it, some of our Wanderlust rounds will have gone into him. And they did. They did eventually kill him. Let's see how quickly the Wanderlust can kill the super badass loader here in the next room. You'll also notice that I am below 400 rounds of ammunition at this point. The Wanderlust is extremely ammo inefficient, in combination with, not being very strong or, quick to kill either. So we'll go ahead, pick this guy up. He's the only enemy in here, so these bullets should hopefully go to him fairly quickly. But you can see that even in a entire phase lock, with slag and cloud kill, we barely did half of his health bar. That is just not very good. We'll finish him off here, but that is not a strong weapon. And Perhaps we could have used a class mod that benefits a little bit more, because I don't think chain reaction is really helping out this weapon. But even with that, the weapon is still performing very, very poorly. So let's go ahead and take a look at the damage numbers here on the Wanderlust. It looks like the potent version is at 476k, and the binary version is at 406k. And the fire rate is at 1.2 and 1.4. So let's go ahead, quit out, and apply the community patch to see how the weapon has changed. As I understand it, it gets a significant boost, and people said that it performs a lot better now. That's not what I wanted to do. Instead, I wanted to execute patch. So I had, recently taken the HUD down in order to take a screenshot, so that's why that was my quick command when I pressed up there in the console. So we did get the patch applied. It should make the Wanderlust different. We can see now, instead of 406k and a 1.2 fire rate, we've got almost 460k here, and it's got a fire rate of 1.5, so that's definitely improved. And we're up from 476k to almost 530k over here, so that's pretty good as well. The fire rate's at 1.8. It looks like the ammo consumption has been decreased from 3 rounds to 2 rounds, and so this one's only going to consume 4 ammo per shot instead of 6 ammo per shot. That'll give us a deeper magazine, and that's something that's definitely nice as well. In addition to that, it looks like it may have extra projectiles, so that's pretty cool. Instead of 1 projectile at a time, it looks like we're getting 3 if we shoot the potent version, so maybe that makes it better. I would assume so. That seems like it would just triple the DPS, regardless of whether or not the fire rate and damage was increased, and the ammo consumption. Okay, so this enemy did get slagged. He was slagged because these weapons do have some splash damage, and the splash barrel killed him. Let's switch over to the more potent binary version here, instead of the potent version, which is probably a little bit less potent. We're going to phase lock this dude and just really kind of fill the room with these. Okay, this weapon is quite powerful now. Is it fun to use? Yet to be determined, right? Because you don't really aim at things. I can see how this weapon would be definitely an effective weapon to use if there was a situation where you were trying to deal damage on an enemy while you were behind cover. This is going to be a pretty solid weapon for that. It does very well. Go ahead and just really try to lay into these guys here. I'm going to switch off of the Blurred Trickster comm and move over to a Legendary Siren comm, I think. Just because, ooh, I don't even have one. Never mind. Just because it might benefit the weapon a little bit more. But since I don't have one, we'll leave it be. So now this might be something that the weapon is still shitty at, is dealing with an Exploder, because we can't hit critical hits. But we can deplete his entire health bar quick enough that it doesn't really matter for us. So there are other enemies in this room, but it did seem to attack the one that was closer to the enemies that I was actually looking for, which is good. I think that this weapon does have some good synergy with, what's that skill called? Scorn? Because you can throw Scorn and it will actually, slag some enemies that can't shoot at you in some situations, assuming you've thrown the Scorn ball in a desirable direction and you're behind cover and stuff. And then that's a really good way to slag an enemy and also at the same time deal damage to it with this weapon. You could combine that with switching to a Moxie weapon, and then you would be able to recover health at the same time once you've already released the projectiles from this, right? So that's pretty cool there. You can see there that in one phase lock, the whole enemy died, and I didn't even shoot the last rounds there. So we could have shot a little bit more and definitely killed him within one phase lock. But that is so much better than it was before, where it couldn't even kill him it couldn't even take out half of his health bar in an entire phase lock with Cloud Kill going. So it's a significant improvement to this weapon, which I think is a good thing, because this weapon was pretty much a joke beforehand, right? This weapon was very, very bad, and it was a second generation Pearl too, and it often made me wonder if Gearbox really does test every weapon before they release it. It seems to me that the Wanderlust unpatched version should have never made it past quality assurance. Now, I could be wrong on that. Some people may disagree, but it doesn't seem like this weapon was ever tested prior to the release of the weapon, which is very weird to me. I don't understand why they would do something like that. Cool. I really can't tell if chain reaction is working with this weapon or not. I hope that it is. That would definitely make the weapon better, but meh. It's hard to tell, really. I don't know. One thing that is cool is if that you have a ton of these rounds out in the air and then an enemy appears, they'll all start zooming in on it before their lifetime's totally depleted. So that's not always super impressive because you really need slag in order to, you know, benefit from this completely. But it's still alright. Another situation there where this weapon is still weak is when exploders or probably psychos are approaching you, because they're going to approach you a little bit quicker than this weapon can actually zoom in on the enemy. But still, it can do okay. But like you can see there, if that exploder is not slagged, you're going to have a really tough time killing him before he gets close enough to just trigger his explosion. So that's something to keep in mind. It does look like the weapon still consumes quite a bit of ammo. We are down below 300 ammo at this point, even though the ammo consumption was reduced. So that'll be something to keep in mind as well. Go ahead and kill that junk loader there, hopefully. Alright. So I'm going to wait for this guy to just get a little bit further out of that door because I wanted him to not get phase locked in the hallway. I thought it would make it a little bit easier for my Wanderlust rounds to zoom in on him here. So that finished him off. We are a little bit low on ammunition. I'm going to run back here and pick up a little bit of ammo before we proceed. And we'll see what it can do in the last room. Now, the last room is a little bit longer than both of these two rooms here, and so that might be a good opportunity for the Wanderlust to really take out enemies with minimal effort from us, right? Because if the enemies are super far away, they're going to have a tough time aiming at us, but this should still home in on them pretty diligently and end up taking them out, would be my guess. We'll see if that's actually the case or not. I'm going to go ahead and preemptively blow up some of these barrels. I guess I could do that with Scorn. So we'll go ahead and try to get some, I think it's inertia on Maya that keeps my skill up. I was going to say, or shield up. I was going to say Grim, but they're similar skills in a lot of ways, but the one we're actually thinking about right now is inertia. I had caught that fire damage over time, so I wanted to make sure that our shield wasn't going to get depleted and then our health bar too. So this guy's phase locked a really far ways away. Maybe we'll be able to actually put some damage that far down range. I'm not sure. Did look like we activated our kill skill that far down range, so that's pretty crazy. Just kind of keep throwing it out here. Looks like this R loader is about to die. Deal with the junk loader as well. I'm going to throw another Scorn out there so that hopefully some of these guys that are really far down range will get slagged, and these extra Wanderlust rounds that I'm throwing down there will end up, you know, hitting softer targets because they're slagged. We'll see about that. I'll go ahead and phase lock the exploder because that's the one that I feel that I can't take out as well with this weapon. The buff to Scorn is an indirect buff to this weapon as well, just because you're able to throw Scorn more frequently, and Scorn I feel like pairs nicely with this weapon, so that's another buff to the Wanderlust if you're using Maya. Go ahead and try to get this guy slagged up there. Perfect, he'll die for us. Speaking of things that'll die for us, we'll get rid of that junk loader pretty quickly. So up close here, you know, this weapon is a little less effective because if you were using another weapon at that range or another strong pistol at that range, you probably would have taken that guy out quicker. So that's really where the Wanderlust truly does not perform as well as when enemies are super close. But it does seem to perform pretty well when they're just a group of enemies that you want to throw out some indiscriminate damage for. It definitely does very well at that. It does quite a bit of damage now. I don't think its time to kill would compare favorably with some other weapons that are, you know, closer to precision weapons because you're going to get your damage on the enemies a little bit quicker. Once the pellets actually start hitting enemies with this weapon is very, very powerful, but it does take just those couple moments until those darts, I guess you would call them, zoom in on the enemies there. So that takes just a moment for that to happen, but with that in mind, when it does happen, it's quite powerful. Throw some Scorn out there, hopefully just make sure everything's slagged for us. Looks like the hot loader has come into this room as well. The hot loader's from the next room, but since this weapon bounces about, it'll definitely do that for us. Looks like we did get a consummate bad touch here as well. That's pretty cool. We'll move forward into killing Hurley and Hurley's two super badass loaders. I'm hoping that you know, one of the super badass loaders spawns way up on one of those top catwalks so that we'll be able to kind of observe how this weapon does at long range. The longevity of the projectiles from this weapon does seem to be quite appropriate. They last a long time, and because of that, you're able to... I know there's a barrel over here somewhere. There we go. Because of that, you're able to shoot from a really far distance away from your enemy and not have to worry about your projectiles dying before they get there, which is kind of cool. So we're good on barrels at this point. And it does look like we've got one guy way up here. So go ahead and get him slagged, and then we'll just release a mountain of darts at him and see what happens. I don't know if you guys watch the How Ridiculous channel. I think they're probably the best channel on YouTube for my money. I find those guys to be really, really hilarious. But anyway, they do some stuff where they throw darts down at like RC cars and shit. And one of them always just grabs, I mean, literally dozens of darts at once because they're like, I think they're 45 meters in the air, right? And they're trying to hit an RC car with balloons on it, kind of like it's Mario Kart or something. And he just grabs like a grip of darts, you know, probably like 4 dozen or so, close to 50 darts, and chucks them all out at once. That's kind of what this weapon is reminding me of right now. Those guys are Australian and they look like they look like they have fun. I wish I was having that much fun all the time. They wear cool sunglasses too. All right, so against Hurley here, we're gonna go ahead and just sit around the wall and just really try to lay into him here with the darts. Now, obviously, this is a corrosive version. Again, I should have brought in a shock version. That is pretty stupid on my part. Just keep this guy slagged here since I felt like he was about to get unslagged. It does look like we've taken out about half of his shield at this point, which is good. But, we'll, ooh, he is affected by quasars. I'll go ahead and take down his shield with quasars just so that we can maybe see if we can get a second wind because I'm an idiot and let him kill me. So that was my mistake there. It looks like we are not going to be able to get a second wind on a huge health target like Hurley here with this weapon. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. This weapon is not going to be able to disable enemies' arms. I did not think that a super large enemy like Hurley there would get moved so far by the Quasar, and it was surprising to me because when you phase lock him, he cannot be phase locked, right? So I didn't think that he would be able to just be moved so easily by a Quasar grenade, but I guess it makes sense. So now his shield's down, and this, I guess, will be another chance to see if we're able to kill Hurley while standing back really, really far. My mistake on letting Hurley kill me there, you can definitely kill Hurley with the Wanderlust and take almost no damage from him. If I had paid more attention and brought in a shock version, I'm sure we would have been able to kill him from around the corner there. But wow. So this is a situation where I do feel that the Wanderlust is performing less than admirably because Hurley is not the toughest enemy in the world, even though he has gotten a significant buff as a part of the community patch. His machine guns are still very, very strong. His barrels are still not that strong. The pacing of his attacks is very tolerable and very easy to work around too. So I feel like Hurley is not that difficult so long as you can disable his machine gun arms, right? But this is a gun that cannot disable his machine gun arms because you can't guarantee critical hits with this weapon. So that's something this weapon is bad at. Now, if we just stand, where Hurley can't hit us and just fire all of our rounds up in the air and stuff, well, we're going to be okay. He's going to die. But still, the weapon is less than accurate. That's, for certain, and it's not capable of targeting critical hits specifically, therefore you cannot knock off a loader's arms. And because of that, certain enemies like Hurley are going to be a lot more dangerous than they otherwise would be. With a normal Maliwan pistol, maybe not this one because it's a dart as well, but a normal Maliwan pistol like an Aegis or something, I would be able to knock off Hurley's arms pretty easily, and then Hurley would almost be entirely impotent. We wouldn't have to worry about getting killed by him anymore. But because of the binary's, inability to hit those critical hits, that's something that we have to watch out for against enemies like Hurley. Now, I'm thinking a situation where this weapon might be kind of decent is against Saturn in Digistruct Peak, right? You could hang out really far back and just not have to worry about Saturn because there are places where Saturn can't hit you, and these should last long enough to, go across the entire distance and zoom in on Saturn. So that might be a situation where this weapon is perhaps most optimal. I could definitely see this weapon being used to effect, in co-op as well, when it's definitely more difficult to be precise because there's so much more chaos happening, right? You could be playing with an Axton who's moving enemies around with a nuke turret, for example, and that's a situation where you're going to run into enemies getting bobbled and jostled and moved around quite a bit. Or you could have friends that are using quasars or other singularity grenades. And those are situations where it's harder to be precise on enemies. And that's one of the reasons why playing Sniper Zero is actually a little bit harder in co-op than it often is in single player. In situations like that, where you're playing with a very chaotic team that's likely to move enemies about very, very frequently, if you have multiple Mayas that are all phase locking stuff, you could have a lot of converges going on with enemies bouncing around. That would be a situation where this could definitely finish off some kills, activate a kill skill for you, and be a solid weapon. Overall, I think it's still going to be a little bit less effective than a traditional weapon that you can actually be more precise with, that you can actually get critical hits with and play more deliberately with. But this is definitely a powerful weapon now that I do think it has several niches that, make it worth having. If you farmed for one of these, you will no longer be disappointed, which I think is awesome because I did not like that there were pearlescent weapons that were straight garbage, pearlescent weapons that were obvious downgrades over even a regular blue rarity non-unique weapon, for example. Some pearlescent weapons, like the unpatched version of the Wanderlust, was probably on tier with white weapons. It was a very, very bad weapon. So with the community patch, does it suck? No, absolutely not. It's very powerful now, but I would say its time to kill is a little bit longer than some other high tier pistols just because you can play with them a little bit more aggressively, you can be a little bit more accurate, and you can target critical hits specifically. So it's not as if the Wanderlust is overpowered now in my mind. It's a pretty powerful pistol, and it perhaps requires a little bit less attention to detail than a lot of other pistols would, but with that in mind, I still don't think it's quite as powerful as the highest tier pistols. So I think that's actually kind of a good spot for it to fall in power-wise. It's definitely a high tier pistol, but it's not a top tier pistol from my estimation. Some of you guys may think differently. Some people may think this is the top tier pistol. I'm not sure. If you guys think that, let me know in the comments and let me know why. I'd be happy to read that. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you haven't yet taken the time to subscribe, please do so. I'd appreciate that as well. Otherwise, I do hope to catch you next time. Bye, guys.